Get ready with me while I tell you a few creepy, scary stories. And honestly, I'm just kind of doing this out of necessity because I feel like I just don't have any time. So honestly, you could put the phone down and just listen to the sound of my voice if you want to. I'm very sick, so I'm very raspy today. I promised a long time ago to do a longer format type video on the ocean, and I finally am gonna sit down and do that. It's probably not gonna be perfect. I'm still gonna have to work out some kinks, but as Ash and Elena say for Morbid, and as they said for Morbid, when they started out, they didn't know what they were doing, so we're just gonna do our best and see what happens. Our first story came to me via email from someone who said that I can just call him Dale. The subject line in the email said high tide on the sound side, which was kind of like a light bulb calling card for me, so I immediately opened it. In this email, Dave goes on to say that this story takes place a couple of years ago, so it is fairly recent, and he said that he and about 3 friends were out and they were night fishing. He said that they were off the coast of the Outer Banks near Diamond Shoals. Now, if you know where Diamond Shoals is, you know not exactly a safe place, but with today's navigation, it's become much safer. But in his email, he did say, don't worry, I've lived here my whole life. So has everyone else who was out that evening, and we were perfectly fine. I believe them 100%. But he says that they're out there and they're just like kind of setting up like where they're going to go fishing. And he says that everything just went quiet. He said that the sea wasn't even moving. It was almost like there was no air moving. The water wasn't moving. He said that you could have heard a pin drop. Now, if you've ever been out on the water, especially near Diamond Shoals, that is not normal. Dave said that he and everyone else on the boat were kind of glancing around trying to figure out what the heck was going on. And off their port side, they noticed fog, and it was a very dense fog. And he said that as they're sitting there looking at it, a ship starts to come out of this fog, but not like a tanker or something that you would see on the water every day, but a 5-masted schooner that looked like it was straight out of like the 1900s. Dale says that as the schooner is coming towards them and the fog is rolling in with it, he and his friends are just kind of looking at this, trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And as they're looking at it, they can see, because he said it's a full moon, so they can see that this ship has an actual crew that's kind of like milling about on it. And at first, Dale told me that he actually thought, like, this is someone's hobby. Like, that's cool. I know this is, like, really tan, but trust the process. Then Dale tells me that as this thing gets closer, he starts to feel like it's more of an ominous vibe and not really somebody's just late night hobby. He says that the first sign that he had that something was off was, number 1, everything was completely still, which was weird. Number 2, he said it was the smell, which he described as yethy, which is basically like stale and rotting. And he said that the smell just became stronger and stronger as the schooner got closer to them. As they're sitting there watching this schooner, they realize that this thing is about to pull up along their port side. Like, it wants to have like a conversation, like, hey, what's up? So Dale said, to make a long story short, this thing pulls up along their port side. He said it's still kind of far away, but it's not like so far that he wouldn't be able to hear them, because he could have heard a freaking pin drop at this point because everything out there was so still. It pulls up along their port side, and he says that he can now see the crew. However, he says that he cannot make out any features. It's almost like they are blurry. Like, the features are there, but they're not sharp. He said maybe it was the distance. And then he described them further by saying, have you ever seen Pirates of the Caribbean and the crew of the Davy Jones? Just imagine something like that, but like less barnacles. Oh my. So he says that he and his friends are standing on their boat, and they are just like flabbergasted by what is happening and what they are seeing. At this point, Dale said that he felt like, I am either in the middle of the most elaborate prank that I've ever experienced in my life, or this is something paranormal, which he said wouldn't be weird because he has experienced other things on the water that he couldn't explain. However, this was the first time that it felt up close and personal. But the schooner cruises up along their port side, and he said that there's one guy. There's one guy who walks over to like the railing of the ship, and he's looking at them. And he said that as he's looking at this man, he needed a new pair of shorts because he says that this guy leans over the railing a little bit and speaks. And he said, yes, speaks, talks to us. And he said, yes, I could hear him because remember, he said that the ocean was still. There was no wind. The water wasn't moving. He said it was quiet. He could have heard a pin drop. And he says that this guy leans over the railing and just looks at them and says, we've lost our anchors, gentlemen. He said that once again, he cannot make out this guy's features. Everything, like, there are features, but they're just very blurry. And the guy is just soaking wet. And he says that he doesn't have the courage to say anything. And he says that, admittedly, he just stands there in shock and awe. The only person on the boat that night, he said, that did have the courage to say anything was the only one of them that had had a little bit of liquid courage. And he said specifically it was not the captain, so it was not who was driving the boat. It was just one of their friends. And he said that their friend looked at this guy and didn't know what else to say and just said, we can radio the Coast Guard? Like, honestly, good job, guy. Like, you really tried. After his friend says this, he says that the guy who's standing on the deck of this schooner looks at them and just smiles and says, "Fair winds," and sails away. The air starts moving again, the water starts moving again, the fog follows this schooner, and it disappears into nothing, like it was never even there. He told me that he and his friends decide to just go on ahead and wrap up their evening and head on back to shore, which, yes. Dale told me that he has told other people this story, like locals and everything, and like friends that he has who were not out on the boat with he and his friends that night. He has told them about it, and he said that he told one of his friends about it, and the friend actually said, "Did you see the Carol Deering? The ghost ship of the Outer Banks?" And Dale told me that the more that he started to think about it, he thinks maybe I did. So the Carol Deering is the ghost ship of the Outer Banks, and it was found abandoned on Diamond Shoals in 1921. By the time the Coast Guard was able to actually reach this vessel, the crew was gone, almost like they had vanished. They said that they boarded the ship and they had left dinner on the table, food cooking, and it just looks like they had just abandoned ship. Now, the last time that anyone saw the Carol Deering was off of Cape Fear, and they had a megaphone, and they had called to the keeper of the lifeboat, I believe, at Cape Fear, and said, "We have lost our anchors." And this was the last time that anyone ever interacted with the crew of the Carol Deering. Speculation about what happened to the crew of the Carol Deering has ranged from piracy to mutiny to just rum running. But the fact of the matter remains that no one knows what happened to the Carol Deering. All they know is that the Coast Guard boarded the ship, the crew had abandoned it, they could not get it off the shoals, like they couldn't tow it, so they just decided to kaboom it and blow it to smithereens, and the wood that was left from the Carol Deering after the explosion washed up on shore and was used to build cottages. And that's the Carol Deering. So Dale told me I can't say what I saw that night because he did say that the ship did not have a name on it, and if it did, he didn't notice it, which fair enough, my guy. But he says that he has no explanation for what he and his friends experienced that night, and he said if his friends hadn't have been there, he probably wouldn't have believed it either. So what do you think? Did he see the Carol Deering? Or was it just a ghost ship? I don't know. But that's a crazy story, and I loved it. The next story that I'm going to share with you comes to us from someone who is named Erica, and she said that I could use her name, so thank you, Erica. Now, in this story that Erica sent to us, she goes on to tell me that she has lived on the water her entire life, and where she lives, the boat launch that is nearest to her house, you have to go through creeks, and going through those creeks will actually take you to a larger waterway. So she says that this does not happen on the ocean, but where she was, you could access the ocean. She said that this happened about 10 years ago, and she said she was young. She was about 17 years old, and she said that she loved to take her little boat out and go fishing on her own. She said that was like her thing. That was how she cleared her head. That was what she enjoyed doing. So this particular day, she launches her boat at the same boat launch where she always does, and she heads up the same exact creek that she always goes through to get to this bigger waterway to get to her fishing hole, which she said she can't know where it is, so that's fair. That's fair. She said that this was early morning, so there were not a lot of boats on the water. So she's cruising down this creek, and she says she's the only boat around. Nobody else is out. Nobody else is doing anything. As she's coming down the creek, she says that she gets this terrible, eerie feeling. As this eerie feeling comes over her, she says instantly she feels like something is watching her. She told me she has been on this creek many times. This was the first time that she has ever felt like this. She told me she's looking around trying to figure out if there is something watching her, is like what's going on. And she says that as she's looking around, she hears something say her name. It's very breathy, but it feels like it's on the boat with her. And it's like, Erica. I'm like, honestly, hell no. She says that she hears this and she snaps her head to where she hears this noise coming from, but there is nothing there. She says it is to the port side again. She hears it on the port side, and she snaps her head to look over to try to figure out where the heck this noise is coming from. Nothing is there. She goes back to kind of scanning the banks and her surroundings, and she says she hears it again, but this time it's more insistent. Erica, Erica, Erica. She says she snaps her head to where this voice is coming from again, which is again on her port side. And she says the instant that she turns around, she sees right in front of her, just in time to avoid it, a deadhead. If you don't know what a deadhead is, it is a tree that is floating upright in the water. So you're going to see a little bit of it on the surface, but below could be 20, 30 feet of just tree. You hit this thing, you're gone. So she manages to swerve and she avoids this death. Erica wrote that if she had not heard that urgent voice coming from that location on her boat, she probably would have never seen that deadhead and probably just would have hit it straight on and has no idea what would have happened. After this, the day just went on completely normal. No other paranormal experiences. She had a great day fishing. She told me that she has never had another paranormal experience on the water and hopes that she never does. Fair enough. Our next paranormal story comes to us from the Bering Sea, which in itself is terrifying, but it comes to us from a woman who said that she was working on a fishing vessel in the Bering Sea. I don't know if I can use her name. I'm going to call her Sarah. But Sarah said that this happened when she was 19 years old and she was working on a fishing vessel in the Bering Sea. The seas were very rough this particular day, and she says that she's working on deck. Everything is going fine. I told you, I'm sick. Apologies. But she says that she's working on deck. Everything is fine. The sea is rough. That's really nothing new. She's standing there and she says that all of a sudden this giant wave comes over like the bow of the ship. Sarah in her story admittedly told me I was not tethered. So she wasn't tethered. She wasn't tied down. I've never worked on the Bering Sea. I've never been there. Doesn't sound like a vacation spot. So I don't know. But she says that this wave comes over the bow of the ship and she's looking for anything to hold on to because the force of this thing is insane. Yeah. All right, on a side note, everyone always asks me what mascara I use, and it is the Tarte tubing mascara. So that's what I put on my eyelashes. Now, I'm not going to gaslight you into thinking that, like, it'll make your eyelashes this long. I have insanely long eyelashes. That is just, like, the one thing that God blessed me with. It was, like, fresh out of, you know, like, gifts. Can't write music, can't sing. No, can't do that. Legs fresh out of those. Thin, fresh out of those. We're going to build you, like, a brick shit house. Like, you're ready for a battle. But I'm gonna give you long eyelashes. So that's what I got that day. So, but I will say it is very good. It does make them a little bit longer. You can see, so over here I don't have anything on. You can kind of see how long they are, and then over here you can see how long they are. So it does work, but I don't want to gaslight you into making you think that like this is a miracle, but it is good. So unfortunately for Sarah, she could not find anything to grasp onto. Like there was nothing that she could get that was going to keep her from being washed overboard. So she was washed overboard in the Bering freaking Sea. She hits the water. She says it is absolutely freezing. Like it is like a shock to your entire system. You don't even know what to do. She said she did not have on like a suit to protect her from the cold, and she was absolutely freezing. Immediately, she's just shocked. So she begins to sink, like she's being pulled down. Sarah says she's in the water and she is struggling. She is trying to find anything that she can grab onto. She is fighting the water, trying to get to the surface, and she realizes she doesn't have much air left. She said that this felt like an eternity, but it was truly only a few seconds. A few seconds in the Bering Sea, I can only imagine. But she says that she got to the point where she pretty much just gave up and just kind of let herself float off because she knew, I'm not going to make it up to the surface in time to get air. I'm going to freeze to death. Like my body's exhausted. Like I'm just going to let go. So as she's laying there and she's done struggling, you know, she's underneath the ocean. She's in the Bering Sea. It's freezing. And she knows she's not going to make it up for air. So she says she just kind of puts herself at peace and realizes like this is how it ends. And then she says that all of a sudden it feels like within the water, a hand like this, like comes and just pushes and scoops her up. But she told me that this thing is basically just pushing her up through the water, and it feels like a hand, like she can feel the hand around her, and it's pushing her up. She says next thing she knows, she breaches the surface of the water. And miraculously, where she breaches the surface of the water is right next to like the life-saving stuff that the people on her boat had thrown in the water. She immediately latches onto these things and they pull her on board. After the crew was able to pull her onto the deck, she says that the next thing that she remembers, even though she is absolutely exhausted, is the captain of the boat standing over her, taking everything wet off of her, trying to get her warm, and just repeatedly saying, "You were gone, you were gone, you were gone," and he was crying. They keep Sarah warm and immediately get her back to port where they can get her medical attention. And as soon as she's feeling better, she does not go back onto the boat, but as soon as she is feeling better, she does talk to the captain, and he tells her, "I have no idea how we were going to find you. You were under there for way too long. Like, we did not think that you were coming back up. I don't know how this happened. Basically, you should not be here." But, I mean, he was thankful that she was, but basically, like, how? She recounted to him the entire story, how she made it to the surface, how she had given up. He believed her, but at the same time had no idea and had never heard anybody say anything like that before. She told me that she has told other people. Some believe her, some don't. She doesn't care. She told me she does not know what saved her that day. God, the ocean, angels, whatever it was, she's just thankful to be here. As always, thank you guys so much for being here. I hope that you enjoyed these stories today. I hope that you enjoyed the little bit of the longer format. If you have a story that you want to send me, there is an email in my bio. Please feel free to send me those. I love reading them. Like I said, this is my first time doing a long format, so there may be some hiccups. There may be some things that I need to change. I am going to work on it, but I really am going to try to focus more over here just because over there, like, it's so, like, you don't know what's going to happen. So if you're one of the 144 people who do follow me on YouTube, thanks. Guess you hear this before anybody else. But to those 144 people, honestly, thank you. Like, truly, like, I know it doesn't seem like much, but imagine sitting in a room full of 144 people and they want to hear what you have to say. Like, that's humbling, really, if you put it into perspective. So I hope that everyone has a great day, longer formats to come. And yeah, don't forget to send me your stories, all of them, everything. If you think it's too weird, I promise it's not. It's really not. Have a beautiful day.